Welcome to yet another edition of the Stats and Stats podcast, where today we're going over UFC Vegas 86, Hermansson versus Pyfer. First things first, make sure you smash that subscribe. Give a follow over on Twitter, over on TikTok, over on Instagram, wherever there's social media. There is a Stats and Stacks podcast. Go ahead and smash that like button for me, if you will. Always a quick overview of what happened last week. Not going to take long because I got absolutely ran through. Gilbert Urbinas fucked us. Osmont Maxim fucked us. We thought we had Landon Quiones. Fucked us. The judges did. It was just a mess. Got everything wrong. Only thing we got right was the meatball call. I mean, at the end of the day, she did nothing but talk about how these larger girls kept destroying her on the mat, and she was determined to prove that she is actually good on the ground. She said it over and over and over. And she's facing Diana Belbita, who got leg locked by Lipsky. So if you're ever going to show that you can actually be good on the ground, this is the time to do it. And by God, she did. So still negative for the week. Only ended up losing like a unit, which is fine because we should have lost a lot more. Thank you, Meatball Molly McCann. I mean, at the end of the day, all you can do is brush yourself up. If you get fucked up, luckily there's 11 straight weeks of fights. Just go move on to the next one. Is this card much better? No, it's gonna be just as fucking hard. I'm gonna be honest with you. This the level of competition is exactly the same, but we're gonna do what we do. Make the right reads. Did extra research this week just to make sure. I mean, hey, you get it's just the way betting is. That's the way the cookie crumbles. You just dust yourself off and you move on. So, again, a whole bunch of fights to pick from. That's a positive. There's 14 fights on this card. Again, gonna be very tough in some of these circumstances, but that's why we talk it through and try to figure out what the right thing to do is. So let's just go ahead and move to the very first fight of the night. We have Daniel Marcos at minus 245 going up against Richie Lang at plus 200. Over under is sitting at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 190. Under 2.5 at plus 145. Let's start with Daniel Marcos. Kid's good, man. He's 15-0. He has really good striking. Definitely put it on display his last few fights. His cardio's okay. He can slow down a little bit, but all in all, he's a pretty good striker, a pretty decent cardio. He'll even mix in a takedown from time to time, representing that just booming Peru mixed martial art scene right now. His volume checks out. He has 89% takedown defense, so he is not an easy guy to get down. I think Brandon did in the Contender Series, and that might be the only person that took him down. Brandon Lewis might be the only one. He throws a whole bunch of body work, so even if he starts to slow down, you will as well. Major problem I have with Marcos is that he's a counter striker, and counter strikers scare me, mainly because if you don't throw on the other end, then they don't really have anything to counter. Their volume gets low, and you get some real greasy decisions. I mean, I thought he lost his last fight against Davy Grant. I locked him last time. And I had him in almost all of my parlays. Definitely was a little too high on Daniel Marcos, and just totally overlooked that he only counter strikes. That's really once he will go to the body from time to time, and everything else is a counter punch or just a counter strike in general. So you do have to be cognizant of that. He can fight going backwards, which is usually goes with counter striking, but at the end of the day, you need someone on the other end. He needs an appropriate dance partner to make sure we actually put money on this dude. And I think that's exactly what he has in a Richie Lang, to be honest with you. He's notorious for pressuring forward and getting punched in the face. That's what a Richie Lang does best. Outside of his nickname, which is fucking sick, the Mongolian Murderer, he's the man. I love that nickname. But outside of that, he's a former 125 pounder. He looks a lot better at 135, in my opinion. He absolutely dismantled Johnny Munoz. So we were on Munoz that week, and he went out there and shut my ass up. Otherwise, he throws, although he gets hit a ton and he gets hit more than he dishes out, he still throws a ton of volume. So we got to be cognizant of that going up against Marcos and the counter striker. If Marcos wants to mix in his wrestling like he does from time to time, he can in this matchup. I mean, Richie Lang is 58% takedown defense. We saw Cody Durden put him to the floor multiple times. We saw Jay Perrin get him down to the floor. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's gonna happen. His cardio's okay. It checks out. He'll also try to mix in wrestling from time to time to try to steal around. So that's interesting that they both do that. Richie Lane can get chin checked from time to time with all those punches. Eventually, one of them are probably going to rock you if you're getting hit that much in a fight. But again, he seems to wear it well outside of this hobby fight. That one I did not see coming. But outside of that, I don't know if he's ever been knocked out. No, he tends to just march forward and eat it. So, yes, he's been knocked out before and fairly recently, but he's pretty decent. He's pretty durable here. So at the end of the day, you have the crisper, cleaner counter strikes coming from Marcos. You have more volume coming from Arichi Lang. Which are the judges going to like? The judges are going to like the O record behind Marcos. I think that's what won him the Davy Grant fight. I thought it was a 50-50 fight there at the end of the day, and they just love calling out and still undefeated. If you're in a kind of like a championship fight, you have to beat the champion. You generally can't pull a DDP and win a close split one, even though I thought DDP won. You can't just win close ones. Generally, they'll give it to you. Like John Jones and Dominic Reyes comes to mind. Johnny Hendricks and GSP. You have to go out there and you have to beat the champion. You can't just get a close fight. And it's the same thing with these undefeated fighters. If it is 50-50 and can get put either way, the judges have a tendency to side with the O. So that's the way we're going to go. So the pick is going to be Marcos. And the bet's going to be Marcos. I don't like the line at minus 245, but it is what it is. What you going to do? All right. Next fight of the night, we have Hyder Emil at minus 190 going up against Fernie Garcia at plus 160. Over 2.5 is minus 240, under 2.5 at plus 180. Now, let's start with Hyder Emil because he's someone that I saw in the Contender Series last fight. I bet against him. I actually liked his opponent in that matchup. Pretty close fight. I don't think it was a split. I think it was a unanimous. It should have been a unanimous. It was. At the end of the day, he has a 3-inch reach advantage, which is nice. He has pretty decent striking. He also has he's 8-0. But he's 33 years old. He's a Dana White Contender Series guy. I was not super impressed with. Again, I bet against him in Contender Series. He's making his debut. I don't know. He tends to slow down a little bit in his fights, but he just pushes through. He does not care that he tires. He just continues to march forward, and that's what he does. This dude, he doesn't move forward. He pressures you. Like he does not take one step backwards. He will march forward whether you're hitting him or not. And that makes him a little hittable. He does the same thing as a Richie Lang. He just feels invincible. He's really durable, marches forward, is willing to eat your shot to give you a few. But at the end of the day, he's pretty cocky and he's not that great. He's pretty one-dimensional. He's not that good of a wrestler. He's not that good on the ground. And honestly, on his feet, he's just scrappy. Like he's not great. He's kind of technical. I wouldn't say scrappy. There's some other guys on this card that are a little more scrappy than he is, but he's just not. He's a little overrated, to be honest with you. He's predominantly just a pressure striker. That's really all he is, and that's not something I'm going to reward. I always want to bet against that. The problem is he's going against short notice up a weight class Fernie Garcia. Not exactly my cup of tea. He has really fast hands. That's the first thing that stood out. Him and Michael Johnson, who are also on this card, have some of the fastest Christmas boxing I've ever seen. Problem is, you hardly see any of it from Fernie Garcia. He's extremely low volume. And again, he's taking this fight on short notice, up a weight class. He's rocking a 47% takedown defense to go along with his good striking. And in regards to him having fast hands, that's the only thing you see. He doesn't kick. He doesn't throw leg kicks. He doesn't really do a ton of body work. He just throws a lot of fast hands to your head. That's all he does. He's pretty one-dimensional, to be honest with you. And he doesn't carry a ton of power. I mean, he's at a good camp at Fortis MMA. I like that. But when you just look at his record, I mean, he's durable enough. His jiu-jitsu is pretty good. That you'll never see it because he's not going to wrestle and he's not going to use it offensively. But people have struggled to take him out. He has pretty good defensive jiu-jitsu. But look, his losses are decision. He won by knockout against Joshua Williams, who's an absolute just can on Contender Series. But before that, decision, and then some rear naked chokes as he is good on the ground. So, and then decision. So at the end of the day, he had a little 3-fight win streak of rear naked chokes against guys that were 6-10, 1-5, and 12-30. Eesh. And then if he fights anyone with a winning record, he goes to decision. So the thoughts are you just go the over in this matchup. But the over steamed to minus 240. I don't really want to do that. I initially thought about taking the dog shot on Fernie Garcia, but again, I don't trust him on short notice up a weight class. Emil's going to be much larger. I don't want to trust Emil making his debut at those odds. So honestly, I want to stay away from this fight. I just want to avoid it like the plague. This is the one I'm looking forward to the least, and the one that I really don't want to bet. But if I absolutely had two guns in my head, I'm gonna go ahead and pick a meal. And I'm just gonna eat the chalk with the over, maybe throw it in some parlays. Fernie Garcia goes to decision. There's what there yeah, death taxes and Fernie Garcia is gonna go to decision. I know diehard MMA podcast say death taxes and Caitlin Chukagian by decision. Hey, shout out, I get it. Same can go for Fernie. This dude's going to decision. Next fight of the night, we're looking at another sketchy one. We're here with Zach Puaga at minus 125 going up against Bogdan Guskov at plus 105. Over under at 1.5. Over 1.5 and under 1.5 are both a straight pick 'em at minus 115. Let's start with Puaga because he's trash. He's not very good. He has pretty decent striking when he wants to use it. The problem is he's been knocked out and chin checked a lot, and he's just not the same. He kind of lost his confidence. Muhammad Usman knocked him out, and all of his confidence just drained. He trains at Elevation Fight Team, which is a really, really good fight camp to be at. But outside of that, it's his striking, his cardio is what he used to lean on. And if you go ahead and you crack this dude, and now he lost faith in his striking, he can't really wrestle. He's not really fought a good level of competition. He doesn't really have a ground game, and now he's a scared striker. So what do you see? His next fight, he went against Jordan Wright and just stood against the cage the whole time and clinched him the entire time. Then he decided, you know what? That was a really boring fight, but I got my UFC win. Let me go back to my ways. Looked good against Modestas Bukakis initially, and then got chin checked, and he was wobbly. And then decided, fuck this, I'm going right back to the cage control. And that's that. You crack this dude once, and he says, I don't want to get hit anymore, and he just becomes a dirty boxer the entire time. And I don't know. I mean, I like Zach Palaga striking when he's confident. When he is not, God, he's a shell of himself, and the judges aren't rewarding this cage work that he's doing. So, at the end of the day, he's got to figure something out. He's got to get his confidence up. He's got to go back to not point fighting per se, but the guy that likes to stick and move, hit you, get out the way, and get the job done. Because that version wasn't that bad. But if you hit him, he's scared, and that's the problem going up against Bogdan because Bogdan's even worse. Like Bogdan's a very, very, very bad fighter. He is not UFC caliber, but he hits like an absolute truck. The dude is the definition of power. His striking's okay, decent striking, just a ton of power. His jiu-jitsu, he's a black belt on paper, but he got tapped out by Volkan Ozdemir in his last fight. So I don't know. He's a black belt, but he's not a credentialed black belt. The biggest thing with him is that it's a fraud alert because of his schedule and his cardio. First and foremost, dude was absolutely gassed 3 minutes into the first round against Volkan. Was Vulcan a tough matchup for your UFC debut? Yeah, I don't know what the UFC was thinking here. I think they read that he was real. The problem is he's not fraud check. I mean, he fought someone that was what 20-10 before the UFC. But right before that, this dude has how many wins? He has 14-3, has 17 fights. So at that point, he had 15, and he's fighting someone that is 4-1. If you have 15 fights, why are you fighting someone that is 4-1? I fought someone that was 7-2. The Abdul guy's actually not too terrible. But I think he's a welterweight. He fought someone that was 5-2, 33-8, and he lost. And he got chin checked early and 3 minutes into the round, just like Vulcan. So this dude literally might just be a glass cannon. He might be able to go out there with a ton of power, crack you, even submit you if he wants to. But if you give any resistance, he crumbles. He does not like to get hit. Ironically enough, Zach fought someone like this. His name was Jordan Wright. That's a weird comparison, but he's a glass cannon. He goes out there. If he cracks you, you go out. If you hit him, he goes out. So who's going to hit who first? I would like to think Zach cracks Bogdan first, to be honest with you. But one of these guys have a plus sign next to their name. One of them do not. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick Bogdan, and I'm gonna bet Bogdan if I had to. I think this is a complete stay away, but I think whoever hits who first, the other guy's going out. Whoever gets hit first is going out. I don't hate the under 1.5 at minus 115, to be honest with you, but I'm just petrified that Pawaga is gonna Pawaga and he gets hit once and then starts doing dirty boxing for the end of time, and this gets dragged out. So I'm gonna stay away from the over. I'm just gonna pick a side. I'm gonna pick Bogdan. I'm going to bet Bogdan, and that's just because he has the plus sign next to his name. Next fight of the night is an actual good fight. We have Jeremiah Wells at minus 155 going up against Max Payne Griffin at plus 130. Over under at 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 260. Under 1.5 at plus 195. Let's start with Max Payne Griffin. He's all right. He's a little bit of a generalist. He's okay jiu-jitsu. He has good striking. He has okay wrestling. He's fought a good level of competition. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here in this matchup. And he has 10 losses, but they're to good guys. I mean, Michael Morales is good. Neil Magny is good. Alex Oliveira, not so much. Alex Morono, good. Tiago Alves, back then, this is 2019, is all right. Zaleski, good. Curtis Millender, that one didn't age well. But at the end of the day, Chidi and Kawani, good, and a 185er. So not the world's worst losses. Problem with Max Payne Griffin is that he's 38 years old. And it shows a 70% takedown defense, but that's a little skewed and fraudulent. I mean, I just saw Tim Means take him down 3 times in his last matchup. I don't like that. That's not a good look. Tim Means is like old enough to be a grandpa right now, so I don't need anyone that's getting taken down multiple times by the dirty bird. Matt Griffin still looks pretty good when he's going forward. I know I locked Michael Morales his last fight out, and he gave me a little bit of a scare in round one. I think Max even won round one, but then Morales turned it up in 2 and 3. And Max Payne seems to be fading a little in the fights. He doesn't gasp by any means, but he does slow down a little bit. And he's another one that he's not predominantly a wrestler, but he can tango a little bit, so he will mix in wrestling to try to steal rounds. I like that. It's just his IQ, man. I remember the Carlos Condit fight where he was kicking the shit out of Carlos's leg. Carlo could not stand, and then he just stopped kicking the leg. Like I've seen matches where he went out there, fights where he went out there and dominated a wrestling exchange, and then let him up and then just didn't wrestle anymore. Like I don't know why he does that. It's very weird. It's like he wants to prove a point that he can do something and then he lets it go and just wants to beat you the way he wants to beat you. So his IQ's a little questionable. His cardio's a little questionable. He got rocked in the Morales fight. He got rocked, I'm pretty sure, in this Tim Means fight. So you can crack this guy too. He's not just going out there and getting knocked out, but you can chin check him. So I think a lot of that is the fact that he's 38. Good news is he's fighting Jeremiah Wells, who's 37. So the age thing isn't really a factor. Wells has really, really, really good jujitsu. He's one of these Renzo Gracie guys. I'm kind of saying that he has great jujitsu. He went out there and got subbed and choked out in his last fight, but that was a little weird. I was on Carlson Harris that night, and that was just weird. I have no words for what we witnessed there. But outside of that, he has really, really, really good jujitsu. His wrestling's okay. I wouldn't say it's great, but the dude's explosive as hell. You can say the same with his striking. His striking's not that great, to be honest with you. It's not very technical, but he is so powerful and so fast and just so fucking athletic that his athleticism carries him through everything. Now, does that hurt his cardio? Yeah, I've seen him slow down in fights. That's just a lot of muscle mass that he's carrying around. Does that affect his chin? I don't know. Because he got rocked in round one a few times by Matthew Semmelsberger. So, dude might be a little chinny. He might be a little bit of a glass cannon himself. So, you do have to be cognizant of that. But outside of that, this dude, if he gets you down, though, he's a hammer on top. Like, it's very, very tough for you to get back up once he gets on top. And again, Max Griffin, 70% takedown defense, but I've seen him get taken down quite a bit, especially as of late. So I think if Wells gets him down, he keeps him down. He might even sub him, to be honest with you. I don't trust Wells's chin. I don't trust Wells's gas tank, but I think he goes out there and he gets it done early. I really don't hate the under, but 1.5 is a little rich. I'd probably take the alternative line and take 2.5. It's still going to be plus money. That's probably the way I'm going to bet it. I'm going to pick Wells, but I don't think I'm going to bet him. I think you can bet on that under 2.5 because Wells can knock out anybody, and he can submit anybody. He's a finisher. And on the other side, Wells has a bad chin. Max Griffin could very well clean his clock in like 30 seconds. So I like the under to cover you on both ends. So the pick is going to be Jeremiah. The bet's going to be the under 2.5. Give me the extra round, and still give me plus money. Next fight of the night is one that's driving me absolutely insane. We have Devin Clark at minus 220 going up against Marcin Prachnio at plus 180. Over 2.5 is minus 180. Under 2.5 at plus 140. The reason I'm going insane is because I think I have to lock Devin Clark, and I feel absolutely terrible about it. Devin Clark is a collegiate wrestler. He has good wrestling. He has good striking out of nowhere. Ever since he went to Elevation Fight Team, his striking has looked really good. He's sitting here knocking fools out like William Knight, and he's cracking Kennedy and Jakuyu. He's out there looking good against Daun Jung and rocking him and taking him down. His jiu-jitsu has always been questionable. He's been subbed multiple times. Let's see, on the ground, he got guillotined by Kennedy. He got ground and pounded by Asmat. He got just absolutely manhandled on the ground by Ian Kutalaba. Anthony Smith subbed him. Ryan Spann subbed him. Rackage just knocked him out. Jan subbed him. Alex Nicholson knocked him out. So yeah, he gets finished quite a bit. So he's a little chinny too. So he's bad jujitsu and he's a little chinny. That's not a good combo. He also throws pretty low volume. Not the greatest fan of that. Um, he's a little hittable too. Man, the more I'm talking, the more I hate wanting to bet this man. But at the end of the day, I don't know. You're gonna hear his dad in the corner, and he has a very annoying and distinct voice that's gonna drive you absolutely insane. I kind of want him to lose for that reason alone, just to have to listen to that voice and put up with it. But I'm talking about him getting subbed. These are good guys. I mean, Kennedy is I think he's 15. If he's not ranked, he's right on the precipice. Asmat's ranked. Ian Kutalaba at the time was ranked. Anthony Smith is ranked. Ryan Spann is ranked. Alexander Rakic is ranked. Jan was a former champion. And Alex Nicholson, not a lot of people know, but he hits like an absolute truck. Getting KO'd by him, not a problem there. The other reason I'm really, really looking to bet Clark is because of who he's facing. Marcin Prachnio, trash. He's not very good. He's not UFC caliber. His striking's pretty decent, but it's kind of like a Wonder Boy karate point style fighting. He's 35 years old, and it's starting to show. He's starting to slow down in his gas tank. He's always been chinny, but it's only getting worse with age. And again, his bread and butter is his striking and his leg kicks. He will dance around that octagon and leg kick you the entire time. The William Knight fight, he literally didn't even use his hands. He just leg kicked them the entire time. Khalil Roundtree, he danced around and just kept leg kicking him. He will leg kick you to a win. He does not care. The problem is he's going up against Devin Clark, and have you seen Devin Clark's legs? Devin Clark's legs are fucking fire hydrants. They're tree trunks. They are probably the strongest legs in the light heavyweight division, to be honest with you. These dudes, like, he talks about wanting to lift, or he talks about wanting to squat 1,000 pounds or something like that. That's his goal. Like, this guy literally trains and focuses on his legs 24/7, and that's what Marcin Prachnio is going to be kicking. Like, he's going to hurt himself kicking Devin Clark's legs. Also, again, Prachnio's chin is even worse than Devin's. I mean, you look at his start of his UFC career, knocked out by Sam Alvey is not a good look. It didn't age well. Magomed Ankalaev, I don't know why they sacrificed him. And then Slow Mike Rodriguez. The man's his nickname was Slow, and he went out there and he KO'd him quick. Not a good look. He does throw pretty decent volume, but they're all fucking leg kicks. His jiu-jitsu's terrible. Vitor Petrino got his first ever submission with him, and honestly was playing around with him the entire time. His wrestling's not good. Again, Petrino is a Brazilian striker. He went out there and took him down and grapple fucked him. Then loss before that was Felipe Lenz, who is a Brazilian striker. Took him down. He is pretty good on the ground, but he's not a good wrestler, and he took him down 4 times. Like it's not a good look. Like the dude can't wrestle. He has no chin and he has no jujitsu. Do I trust Devin Clark? Fuck no. Is this matchup tailor made for him? Unfortunately, it is 54% takedown defense for 35-year-old Marcin Prachnio. Either Devin Clark is going to KO him, or he's going to be able to take him down. Even if he does get cracked or something, he can take him down and then just lay and pray on top of him as long as he has to. Prachnio has no subs. There's nothing to be worried about. So the pick is going to be Clark. Bet's going to be Clark. Next fight of the night is another one I might have to end up locking. I don't like locking women's MMA or a low level heavyweight, but I don't know. In this instance, I think we have one clear side here. We have Luma Lugmume at minus 270 going up against Bruno Brazil at plus 220. Over 2.5 is minus 210. Under 2.5 at plus 160. Dude, I'm just staring down the barrel with Luma. Luma's good. We've locked her before. No fear. She came through against Elise Reed. She looked a little rough the first round, but she ultimately came through. She's a Muay Thai champion. She's really, really, really good on the feet. Good striker. Her wrestling has improved. Her jiu-jitsu has improved. Like she used to have zero ground game and zero wrestling. But we see her getting takedowns against Elise Reed. We see her getting um uh takedowns against Denise Gomes, like Sam Hughes, and Sam Hughes is a wrestler. Also Luma's very, very, very hard to hit, so that bodes well for her. She'll mix in the wrestling as aforementioned. Biggest problem with her cardio actually checks out as well. The problem with her is her size, and that's not really anything that she can do anything about. She can try to bulk up a little. She has looked a little bigger as of late, like just she's trying to pack on some muscle. But she used to fight at 105. She's a true atomweight. And we all know it. It's just there is no atomweight division here, so she's always forced to fight up a weight class. So I want you to picture Volkanovski goes up at 155. He looks a little smaller, but he's able to compete with Islam. I'm sure he can beat a plethora of lightweights in the lightweight division. That is Luma to a T. She's a little smaller, but she matches up well. She knows how to use her size to her advantage, and she's just an all-in-all good fighter. Eventually, she's gonna get bullied. She got bullied by Loopy. Loopy's not the biggest girl either, but she's freakishly strong and a true 115er. And she was able to go out there and bully her. The only way you beat Luma is you go out there and you bully her because she's too little. I don't think that's Bruno Brazil. Bruno Brazil is pretty decent striking. Again, this is an actual weight class for her, so she's gonna have a 4-inch reach advantage. The problem I have with Bruno Brazil is the fact that she has a propensity to slow down in her fights. She has a 53% takedown defense, so her being tall and lanky is not a good thing if Luma wants to take her down. Her schedule is a little suspect. She has not fought a lot of good girls. And the biggest thing for her, she does not like getting hit. And when you do hit her, she's very chinny. We saw Denise Gomes go out there and put her out, put her lights out. And then the ensuing fight, she fought Shauna Bannon, who is not UFC caliber, and Shannon rocked her, like had her not knowing where she was. That's not a good sign. I'm pretty sure I saw her in the regional scene get rocked, or she was doing the chicken dance. Like Brenda Brazil, we don't talk about it. Her chin's not good. And even if you don't rock her and make her wobble around, if you hit her hard enough, she panics. She doesn't like it. She does not react well, and it does not look good to the judges. Touch this girl, she's backing up. She's much, much better going forward. But if you touch her, she is 110% backing up. And all I can picture is Luma's a vicious, just vicious Muay Thai. Like she will throw some elbows, like standing elbows. She will clinch you up and bring you down with clenched knees, and it's just violent stuff. Her ground and pound is pretty violent. Yeah, man. If Luma gets in her face, Brazil's in some trouble. So as long as if she stays out at distance, I could see Bruno picking her apart. But if she starts to lose and she gets in Bruno Brazil's face, she's gonna hurt this girl, and I think she's gonna finish her. So to be honest with you, I don't hate the under. I'm gonna go ahead and pick Luma. Um, minus 270, again, I do not lock anything over minus 300. Luma's flirting with it. But while she's still under that marker, I'll go ahead, I'll lock her. So the pick is going to be Luma Luke Bume. The bet's going to be Luma Luke Bume. She's going to hurt her, and I think she's going to finish her. Next fight of the night, we have Balaji Oki at minus 310 going up against Amir Hasdovich at plus 250. Over under at 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 165. Under 1.5 plus 130. God, I hate this fight. This little middle ground of the fight card here is just it's a murderer's row. I have no idea what to do with any of these fights. So let's just start with this one. The reason I don't know what to do with it is because I think Balaji's ass. I don't think that he's good at all. I'm pretty sure I bet his opponent in Contender Series against him as well, because his takedown defense is terrible. Like it was really bad. I didn't realize how bad it was until I went back and I watched the regional scene. He will have a 3-inch reach advantage here, which is nice. And he's durable as all hell. Like, I don't think you're gonna knock this guy out. He seemingly has pretty decent striking and a ton of power. He loves to move forward, but he doesn't throw a lot. He's pretty low volume. Again, I went over how bad his wrestling is. He's just a brute, man. He's not technical at all. You can hit him. He's pretty hittable on the feet. And he generally likes to counter strike. He's not really, that's again, a lot of these counter strikers do not throw a ton of volume, and he's an example, man. He'd be much better if he just threw more, but he doesn't. He wants you to come at him, and then he wants to counter and put you out. That's all he wants to do. I cannot wait to fade this guy. If they ever, he seems to have good cardio, I'll give him that. But if they give him a wrestler with good cardio, I cannot wait to fade. If they give him a real technical striker, with good cardio, I cannot wait to fade. You give me someone that can do both. Oh my God, I'm going to lock the opposite side. Just because of the way this guy looks, he's always going to be viewed as a favorite. If he wins this fight, people are going to think he's even nastier. So part of me wants him to go out there and just get a quick knockout, so that the next time we see him, he's minus 500 against someone who's going to fuck him up. But I don't know. It may not happen. Damir Hazovic is not good. Damir Hazovic is 37 years old. He's also predominantly a striker. Actually, he can't wrestle at all. He has 34% takedown defense. So I remember his fight against Moicano, and he's talking about, why did you submit me? So his jiu-jitsu's trash. You can back him up, and he feels a little uncomfortable backing up at times. He'll try to mix in offensive wrestling, just kind of switch things up if you're pressuring him a little too much, because again, he does have a tendency to fight on his back foot sometimes. His cardio is weird. It's not good. It's not bad. He'll make it the whole 15. He's huffing and puffing the whole way, but he will make it, God damn it, to that end of the fight. So, I don't know. And even when he does mix in his wrestling, he has no jiu-jitsu, so he has no top game. People just get right back up. Um, he's not good. His competition has also not been the greatest. Yeah, Team Medeiros is trash. Mark Diakasey's okay, but he lost to him. Hanato Moicano is great, but he lost to him in 40 seconds. Christos Giagos is okay, but he lost to him. Polo Reyes is trash. Nick Hine is trash. Alan Patrick is trash. Marcin Held is trash. Like, all these guys he's fighting are not good. Yeesh. And if he fights anyone that's decent, he loses to him. So, is Balaji decent? No, he sucks too. I don't want to bet either one of these guys. They're both strikers that are one dimensional that I want to fade. I do think Demir throws a little more, so it makes me want to lean his direction because he's an underdog and such a large one at that. But then I also look at the fact that he's 37 and you can crack him, so it makes me go back to the Balaji side. But then I look at Balaji's takedown defense and realize that Demir will mix in a takedown from time to time. So I go back to the Demir side, and then I realize that he can't keep him down, and Balaji's just going to pop right back up, and the judges aren't going to care. So I go back to the Balaji side. So I am going back and forth. I'm ping-ponging back and forth, and then I just come to the consensus that Balaji is minus 310 favorite in his debut. Demir has been there for a long time, and he's plus 250. Give me the vet lesson. So the pick is going to be Balaji. The bet is going to end up being Demir, and it sounds gross. I might even pull the trigger on it just because I feel obligated. These vet lessons happen all the time, and it might be another one incoming. Speaking of vet lessons, Next fight up, we have Trevin Giles at plus 210 going up against Carlos Parates at minus 260. Over under 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 130. Under 1.5 plus 100. One of these two old vets are going to win, and I just don't know which one. So let's start with Trevin Giles, the old vet, even though he's only like 31 years old. At the end of the day, he's the definition of a generalist. He has good striking, he has good jiu-jitsu, he has good wrestling. He's not great anywhere, but he suffices everywhere. He is another one of these guys where he's a ton of losses. He has 5 losses, but I mean, honestly, Gabriel Bonfim is a killer. Michael Morales, we talked about earlier, could be a future champ. Driscus Duplessis is a current champ. Gerald Mearshart is ranked, and Zach Cummings. I actually saw that fight live. He beat the absolute shit out of Zach Cummings and then gassed out. And Zach, I don't know if he was ranked at the time. He was at some point. Zach wasn't terrible back in 2019. And again, Giles beat the shit out of him. And then just gassed out. His wins against Ryan Spann, that's a great win. Roman Dolidze, it's a great win. Preston Parsons is a decent win. Like he has some decent wins on his resume. So all in all, he's a pretty good fighter. It's just his cardio fails him. And he has not been wrestling as of late. And I don't like that. He's someone who quit his police job and has only been focusing on MMA. And he just is predominantly boxing since then. Like he's not utilizing his wrestling like he used to. I don't know if it's because he gassed out and now he just doesn't like doing it anymore because he knows he's going to gas out. But he's also throwing less volume. He doesn't throw a ton of volume anymore. And is that because of the gas tank issue as well? I don't know. He fought as high as 205 as of late. His last 3 fights have been at 170. Is that going to hurt or help his gas tank? I don't know. It didn't seem to look great against Preston Parsons. I think he just has bad cardio no matter the weight class he's in, no matter what he does. I know he just has bad cardio. His chin's okay, but you can rock him. He's been KO'd before, multiple times actually. And I mean, yeah, actually, Gabe was a club and sub, and then Morales knocked him out, and Driscus knocked him out. So, I mean, you can knock this dude out if you really want to. So he's bad cardio and a bad chin. That's not really what you want, especially going against Prentice, who's predominantly a striker, and a damn lanky and good one at that. At the end of the day, he's not a young kid. He's coming into his UFC debut off Contender Series with a 17-6 record. I mean, he's 30 years old. He's gonna have a 30-inch reach advantage here, and he's a striker and a good one, man. The dude's lanky and he knows how to use his length. He's been doing some training with the Fight Nerds, which is good for him because that camp is on absolute fire right now. His cardio seems to check out. Everything's great except for one major thing. His takedown defense is lacking. It does not look good, and it does not look particularly hard to take him down. Once you take him down, his jiu-jitsu is not terrible, but I'd go advantage Giles there. So if Giles puts on his fucking singlet and uses fight IQ, I think he can take Prates down and dominate this fight. Is Giles going to do that? I don't know. He hasn't done it as of late, man. He keeps gassing out and he's wrestling less and less the more and more tired he gets. So God, if I knew Giles was going to go out there and wrestle, I'd pick him. If I know he's going to go out there and strike, which is what he's been doing, I'm going to choose Prates and knock him out in like round one, in rounds 2 or 3 or something like that. So is Giles going to wrestle? That's going to decipher how this fight goes. And just as I pick Prates and I think that he's going to win, I just look at Carlos's takedown defense and I look at that plus 210 next to Trevin Giles. I hate it, but I'm gonna have to go Giles here. So I'm gonna do the thing that everyone hates. I'm gonna pick Carlos Prates, but I'm gonna bet Trevin Giles. That number's off. And between Giles and Hasnovic, one of them are gonna hit. I just don't know which one. So I'm gonna bet both. Then that takes us to another just messy fight here. Definition of striker versus grappler. We have the black belt hunter, probably the coolest name in MMA. Rodolfo Vieira going up against Armin Petrosian. Vieira's minus 115, Petrosian at minus 105. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 175. Under 1.5 plus 135. Let's start with Let's start with Petrosian, because he's someone I've been riding the entire time. I bet him against CLD. I bet him against Gregory Rodriguez. This dude does nothing but win me money. AJ Dobson. I love Armin Petrosian. He's done no wrong to me. I've gotten zero of his fights wrong in the UFC. I did not bet him against Kyle Barallo. You can just kind of read what's going to happen with him. Great striking, great cardio, really good get up game, really high volume. Problem I have with him is that 36% takedown defense. Dude, it's not good. It doesn't look good at all. Like you touch this dude's leg, he just falls over. I don't know what's wrong with him. He's I've just never seen anything like it. Like it's not good. It's not good. He needs to go to Dagestan and train or do something. Because that takedown defense, 34% or 36%. Again, he does a good job getting up once he's taken down, but it's way too easy to take him down. And he gets up real fast and he gives up his back every single time he gets up. You're going against the black belt hunter. Like this might be the best jiu-jitsu practitioner in all of MMA currently. And that's all he has. He has really, really great jiu-jitsu and a jab. That's literally all he has. His wrestling's not terrible, but it's not good. We saw him get Cody Brundage down as a D1 wrestler, so that's good. We saw him take down Dustin Stolfus. I mean, that's all right. But we also saw him go like 0-20 against Chris Curtis. So yeah, his wrestling's not. We saw him take down Anthony Hernandez. That's not easy. So we've seen his wrestling look good. We've seen his wrestling look bad. And it may only take one with Armin. But if he can't take Armin down and it's one of those bad nights, he's gonna get absolutely decimated on the feet. So it is striker versus grappler. On the mat, it's not close. But Rodolfo's gonna submit him. On the feet, it's not even close. Armin's going to knock him out. So, do you believe in Rodolfo's wrestling? That's what this fight comes down to. Rodolfo will have a 2-inch reach advantage. I forgot to mention that. But again, that's not really going to help him. And watch weigh-ins. Rodolfo has missed weight multiple times. So just make sure you look at him, see if he looks drained. If he looks absolutely terrible or misses weight, I think that's our cue to not trust him to continually shoot takedowns. If he comes in, he looks great, he makes weight early. I think I'm going to pick him. So it's all going to be on the scale for me. But as of right now, I'll go ahead and I'll pick Rodolfo and I'll bet Rodolfo. But that scale could change that pick and bet. Just got to see how he looks on the scale. All right, next fight of the night. We have Michael Johnson at -125 going up against Darius Flowers at +105. Over under at 1.5. Over 1.5 is -120. Under 1.5 -110. Let's start with Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson's old, man. He's 37 years old, but I'll have a 2.5-inch reach advantage here, which is nice. He has really, really, really fast hands. Kamaru Usman's on record saying that he's the hardest hitter that he's ever gone up against, and everyone talks and raves about Michael Johnson's power. So he has power to match his speed. It's great. His striking's really, really good. Takedown defense, great. 80% takedown defense, former like D3 college wrestler or something like that. Has good wrestling in his back pocket. His jiu-jitsu, it's all right. It's looked good. It's looked bad, but he's like a 15-year vet in the UFC. So you see it progress enough. It's good enough. Problem with Michael Johnson is his mental psyche. He's just kind of he will go out there and have terrible fight IQ and just do things that will make him lose a fight. He'll go out there and beat your ass and then start engaging in wrestling, or he'll go out there and just he just does stupid shit all the time. Gets blocked in the third round all the time. He went out there, he won the first round against Diego Ferreira and then got knocked out stiff. Went out there, beat the shit out of Josh Emmett for 3 rounds and got caught in the last round, got knocked out stiff. Went out there and knew Clay Guida was going to do nothing but wrestle, yet continued to get out wrestled by Clay Guida, even though he's good takedown defense. Tiago Moises went out there and 10-8'd in round one, nearly killed a man, came out and got ankle locked in 20 seconds into round two. Like he just does stupid shit all the fucking time. This is the guy that has knocked out Dustin Poirier, but lost split decisions to Andre Fili and lost to Nate Diaz, and Darren Elkins choked him out. Like, how do you knock out Dustin Poirier and then get choked out by Darren Elkins and get decision by Stevie Ray? Like I don't understand what's happening with this dude. You never know what version you're gonna get. He has a good schedule. He is a top 10 fighter, and he's also a bottom 10 fighter. It just depends on what Michael Johnson wants to show up that night. On the other side, we know what we're getting in Darius Flowers, and that's a brawler. He's not good. He's not UFC caliber. He's an athlete. He carries a ton of power. The dude hits like an absolute truck, which does not bode well for Michael Johnson's chin. But I can't even say he's a good striker. He's literally just a brawler. He's cutting down to 155. He spent most of his career at like 185, so this is a pretty big cut for him. He loves to pressure and go forward. He does not take a step backwards. But again, his striking is not technical at all. It literally looks like if you were to like watch a bar fight, that's literally how he fights. He's just a scrapper. He's kind of like a 2024 Kimbo Slice, to be honest with you. March forward, scrap like it's a street brawl, call it a day. Difference is he'll mix in his wrestling. He's explosive, just like Jeremiah Wells. It's not the greatest wrestling, but he will use his athleticism as a weapon. Use that explosion, get you down to the ground. Doesn't have great jujitsu, doesn't really do much with it once you get down. But good wrestling nonetheless, good striking nonetheless. I would like to say it's a matter of who hits who first, but Johnson can go for 15 minutes. Flowers cannot. His cardio cannot be good, especially at 155. I think he might be a little depleted. And for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and take Johnson. I'm going to pick Johnson. I'm going to bet Johnson. Do I feel great about it? No. Johnson's 37 coming off of a KO loss. But Darius Flowers is not UFC caliber, and that's that. Pick is Johnson, bet is Johnson. Next fight of the night is another one that I've tossed and turned and not really know what to do with. We have Brad Tavares at plus 200 going up against Gregory Robocop Rodriguez at minus 245. Over 2.5 minus 140, under 2.5 at plus 110. Let's start with Brad Tavares. He's the ultimate barometer test, the gatekeeper. In order to fight for a title, you have to fight Brad Tavares. You also, yeah, you have to fight Brad Tavares. He has a really good schedule that he's fought. He's fought the Bruno Silvas and the DDPs and the Israel Adesanyas and he's fought basically everyone. The Yoel Romeros, the Robert Whitakers. Like if you're a champion in this weight class, you fought him. So yeah, at the end of the day, he has really good striking. He has good takedown defense. His BJJ is all right. He's usually pretty durable, but he's starting to fade as of late. Part of that probably his age. He's getting up there. He entered the UFC when he was like 21. He's now 36, so that's like 15 years in the UFC. Like he's starting to age, and his fight years are a lot older than his 36-year-old stature shows. The biggest problem with him, though, even though he's a good striker and he can get into these brawls and scrap with you. He's pillow fisted. He does not have a lot of knockouts. His last knockout was like in 2018, 2016, something like that. Yeah, his last finish was in 2018. Yeesh, that was 6 years ago. So he's fought good guys. He's a good striker. He just doesn't really have a tendency to hurt anyone. On the other side, that bodes extremely well for Gregory and Rodriguez because Robocop is really good striking, world-class jujitsu. He has okay wrestling. Problem is he seems to slow down in his fights and he's chinny as fuck. Like this dude has a chin issue. He gets countered all the time. When you look at his knockouts, he got countered by Jordan Williams, who's a 170-pound diabetic. He got countered by Bruno Ferreira, who also should probably be fighting at 170, to be honest with you. Armin Petrosian just beat him in a split decision. Who else chinned this dude? Um, oh God, what's his name? What's his name? The Iron Turtle cracked him. Iron Turtle does not hit hard at all. But he did wobble him very badly before he ultimately knocked him out. Bruno Lopez knocked him out years ago, back in 2014, in 1 minute. Like this dude has notoriously had a bad chin. Like it's never been good. So, um, yeah, if you have bad cardio and a bad chin, those are two of the most important things. I don't want to support you, but Brad Tavares is 36 and he doesn't hit hard. So this is tailor made for Rodriguez. I think the UFC wants Rodriguez, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick RoboCop, and I'm gonna end up betting RoboCop at minus 245. That's what the UFC wants. The next fight of the night. God, more weirdness. Ihor Pretoria at plus 165 going up against Robert Bryzek at minus 200. Over under at 1.5, over 1.5 plus 195, under 1.5 minus 260. Let's start with Ihor, because Ihor is one of the worst UFC fighters I've ever seen grace the roster. He has pretty good power. He has okay striking. That's where the compliments stop. He's a gasser. He has terrible cardio. He's very hittable. He has 50% takedown defense. He's very chinny. He has really suspect jujitsu, and he's very fraudulent. When you look at the guys that he beat, like none of them have winning records. When you go back pre UFC, and so just pre-Zuffa organization, 5-2, 11-5, 0-3, 0-0, 17-18, 1-9, 0-0, 5-6, 0-0, 1-2, 3-2, 1-6, 5-5, 3-2, 3-3, 17-17, 0-0, 0-0, 2-2, 0-0. Like, how many records did I read there that had positive? Like, there were like three positive records. So that is not a good look at all. And he's losing to some of these 3-3 guys. He lost to Nikolai Nigaramanu in the UFC is another really, really, really bad light heavyweight. He went out there and got knocked out in round two. Got knocked out by Carlos Olberg, who's a decent striker, but it took him 2 minutes. Rodolfo Balada went out there and grounded bonded him after he had him hurt, and then he gassed out. So I don't know. This dude, he's not good, but he hits extremely hard. On the other side, we have Brysek, who um he's making his UFC debut. People like this guy. I wasn't too impressed. He's a little bit of a can crusher himself, to be honest with you. He's won a million fights in a row. I remember seeing it by KO. One, two, three, four, five. Because one of the announcers said something in one of his last fights and how he's knocking everyone out. But these guys are what, 16-6, 28-17. They're 11-12. Like, these aren't the greatest records, to be honest with you. So he's a little bit of a can crusher. He lost to Kayak Ritu, who lost on the Contender Series, and he went out there and knocked him out in 1 minute. So I don't know, man. This guy seems to have good striking. And the UFC likes him. They offered him Malkoun. They offered him Albert Duraev. Those are not easy first UFC fights. So the UFC seems to believe in this guy. He moves forward. Again, has decent power, but I believe he used to fight at 170. This fight's at 185. Pretoria, all his UFC fights are at 205. So Pretoria is coming down a weight class. Brisek is going up a weight class. So that never bodes well for the guy going up. So this is going to sound crazy, but Brizek has been KO'd before, and I think we see it again. A 33-year-old debuting guy going up a weight class, fighting someone that's coming down a weight class, and all he has is power. The smart thing to do is just take the under. The under is sitting at minus 260, though. Two steamed. Can't do it. I think it's going to be Robert because he's the better fighter. It's who the UFC wants to win. But I think he gets cold cocked. I think he's going to get caught, and I think it's going to be early. I think it's going to be Pretoria round 1 KO. But I'll just go ahead and I'll bet Pretoria and hate myself for it. Then that takes us to the co-main event of the evening. We have Dan Ige at minus 165, going up against Andre Touchy-Feely at plus 140, over under at 2.5, over 2.5 minus 195, under 2.5 plus 150. Let's start with Dan 50K Ige. I don't hate that nickname. He has relatively good striking. He has good jujitsu. His wrestling's okay, but you don't really see it. He doesn't really utilize wrestling. You just only see him using his takedown defense. It's showing a 60% takedown defense, but it's skewed. You got to look at who he's fought. I mean, Bryce Mitchell is a damn good wrestler, and he stuffed a lot of those, but he eventually got him down multiple times. Mazar Evloev took him down 9 times. That's a Russian wrestler. Josh Emmett is a D1 wrestler. Chan Sung Jung, that one's sketchy. Took him down 3 times. Very sketchy. Trained to fight ready. Probably wasn't expecting it. It is what it is. And then he also fought people like Marcin Magtic. It's a wrestler. He fought a lot of wrestlers and a lot of high level wrestlers. So don't hate on his 60% takedown defense. His takedown defense is actually pretty good. At the end of the day, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with great striking. So if you stay on the feet, you you could get knocked out. If you take him down to the mat, he could submit you, and that's kind of his game. On the other side, we have Andre Touchy-Feely. He's a little more one-dimensional. He will mix in wrestling from time to time, especially training at Team Alpha Male. But he's predominantly a striker. He doesn't have a 3-inch reach advantage here. He's coming in on short notice. But he has good striking and good cardio. 70% takedown defense himself. Jiu-jitsu is all right, but Ige definitely has the advantage there. So this looks like it's going to be a stand-up affair. Last short, stocky guy that Andre Fili fought that's predominantly a striker was Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood won. The last tall, lanky guy that Dan Ige fought that's predominantly a striker was Nate Landwehr, and Dan Ige won. MMA math is absolutely terrible, but in this circumstance, when both of these guys are pretty high level, I'm going to use MMA math, and I'm also going to use the fact that Dan Ige's only lost to people that are like fighting for titles or top 5 in the division. Andre Fili, on the other hand, is fighting guys that are like fringe top 15. Level of competition also leans Ige, so that's the way I'm going to lean. I'm going to pick Ige. I'm going to bet Ige. The line's not bad at -165. And then that takes us to the main event. Again, a ton of fights. Thanks for staying with me. If you haven't already, please smash that like button. Give us a subscribe. Give a follow over on Twitter, Instagram, on TikTok. I think Twitter is at Stats and Tack. I believe it took the dollar sign out, so it's at Stats and Tack on Twitter, or X as you have it. Anyway, Jack Hermansson plus 205, Joe Pyfer minus 250, over under at 2.5, over 2.5 plus 125, under 2.5 minus 160. Let's start with B. Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer is good, man. Joe Pyfer is a generalist, but a good one, man. He has good striking. He has a ton of power. He has great jujitsu. He has good wrestling and will use it. Great fight IQ. I do like that. When he fought Abdul Razak Al Hassan, he went out there and wrestled a ton and then got the sub. When he went out there and fought Gerald Mearshart, he went out there and used his striking and stayed off the ground like it was hot lava. Dude uses fight IQ. I absolutely love that level of competition. I wish it was a little higher. But at the end of the day, this guy is great. I think he's a really, really good fighter. He's in the mix. This is a good level of competition for him. The only problem I have with Joe Pyfer is that gas tank. We have no idea. It looks like he might be a gasser, but he's finishing everybody. So we have no idea if he gasses out. My major PSD or PTSD concern is that he's mentioned his cardio. The last fighter to go on record and say people say I don't have good cardio, but I actually do, was Mike Malott. And Mike Malott is someone that had a 100% finish rate, went out there, dominated for a few rounds, and then completely gassed out and got finished by Neil Magny like 3 weeks ago. Could Joe Pyfer do this all over again? He could. Do I want to take the risk and say he does? Probably not. He might be able to just finish Jack. But I need to see him. I would love for him to go 5 rounds, so I knew he had it. If this dude has good cardio and could go for 5 rounds, we're talking championship circle. We're talking top 5 today. But if he can't, Jack Hermansson is going to take advantage. Jack Hermansson does have really good cardio. It's one of the best parts of his game. He has really, really, really good jujitsu. That is the best part of his game. But his striking's good, man. He's a smooth striker, very hard to hit on the feet. We saw Chris Curtis grow frustrated as Jack Hermansson does not care. He will dance around you and jab you for 25 straight minutes. He does not care. We saw him do it to Souza. Like he's done this multiple times. And if he wants to lean on his wrestling, he'll do that too. He's a good wrestler. He's also a generalist. It's just good at everything. This is a good matchup, man. This is actually a really good main event. The more I talk about it, you can drop him. He's not chinny per se, but he's been knocked out before. He's not a cast iron chin guy. So if you catch him at the right time or the right spot, Jack Hermansson will go down and out. But he's fought the better level of competition. I mean, this guy has been ranked number 5 forever. Like he always loses at 5 and then beats everyone else and goes back to 5 and then loses and beats everyone else and comes back. That just seems to be what he does. He can't get over the hump. But you can't get rid of this dude. 35 years old, so he's nearing the end of his time here. But does he have enough left to beat the young kid in Joe Pyfer? High volume, 75% takedown defense. There's nothing wrong with Jack Hermansson. He's a really, really, really good fighter. Joe Pyfer, just as good. I think it's a very 50-50 matchup. I will give Joe Pyfer the better chin. I'll give him the better wrestling. So that turns us to, or sorry, I'll give Pyfer the better striking. Wrestling is a wash. So that brings us down to cardio and chin. Pyfer is a better chin, but Hermansson may have the better cardio. Which one is going to rear its ugly head? Makes me look at the under, to be honest with you, but then I see it's 2.5. I don't like that. The over 2.5 is plus 125. If Pyfer can't get him out of there early, I don't hate that over. Like it looks like a pretty decent number to me. So the pick is gonna be Joe Pyfer, but the bet's gonna be either that over at plus money, over 2.5, or it might be Jack Hermansson. And I might end up live betting Jack. I think that's the way I'm gonna do it. Joe Pyfer's probably gonna win the first few rounds. If Jack Hermansson's still there, I'm gonna live bet Jack Hermansson after the second. I think my heart of hearts tells me Joe Pyfer could get finished late. I think he might be a Mike Malott gasser. It's just you don't talk about your cardio if it's not bad. I've never seen someone with good cardio talk about uh, their cardio ever, like ever. I've only seen bad cardio people talk about it, and Joe Pyfer did a few times, and it scares me. So the pick is going to be Joe. The bet's going to end up being Jack or that over. And that's UFC Vegas 86. Again, it's a long one. It's going to be a fun one. It starts a little earlier. I think it starts at 4, just like last week. Get your beer ready. Brush yourself off of last week. Don't dwell on it. Get back on the horse. Let's make money, baby.